Right now, along a rugged, disputed border, two nations that were once allies are trading fire. A conflict that's been simmering for years has suddenly just boiled over, pushing Pakistan and Afghanistan right to the brink of an all-out war. So how did we get here? Well, to really get a grip on it, we need to zoom in on one pivotal and very, very contested event.
At the heart of this whole dramatic escalation is a single devastating event that happened on March 16th, an event with two completely different explanations. It's a moment that's been flooded with online disinformation, making it absolutely crucial to try and separate fact from fiction to figure out what really happened.
So let's talk about that event. We're talking about the March 16th airstrike near the Afghan capital Kabul. And look, this was not just another border skirmish. No way. This was a mass casualty incident, and it represents a really significant and dangerous turning point in the conflict.
And this gets us right to the heart of the information war that's just raging around this attack. What exactly was the target? Was it a civilian facility, like Afghanistan claims, or was it a legitimate military target, as Pakistan insists? Okay, so check this out. Here are the two totally different versions of reality. On one side, you have the Afghan Taliban. They claim Pakistan bombed a drug rehab center, a place they called a camp of hope, and they're calling this a crime against humanity. But then Pakistan comes back with a completely different story. They say, no, that was a precision strike that took out military infrastructure and terrorist ammunition depots. You've got two nations, one event, and two stories that just cannot both be true.
And the Taliban didn't just make an accusation, they put a staggering number to it. Over 400 civilians killed. Now, we've got to be clear, this figure has not been independently verified, but it has become absolutely central to the outrage that's fueling their calls for revenge.
But, the story gets more complicated. The UN has confirmed a horrific toll of at least 143 deaths, and they've noted that number could rise. But here's a really crucial detail. Video from the site actually shows secondary explosions. And that's a big deal, because it could lend some credibility to Pakistan's claim that they hit an ammunition depot. In response, the Taliban have made their position crystal clear. They vow to take revenge.
But that March 16th strike didn't just happen in a vacuum. Not at all. It was actually the explosive climax of this really rapid back-and-forth escalation, a dangerous cycle of tit-for-tat attacks that pulled both sides deeper and deeper into open conflict.
The whole sequence really kicked off just a few days earlier. On March 12th, Pakistan launched its own aerial attacks on multiple targets across Afghanistan, and that was a major signal that they were escalating their military pressure. And the response? It was immediate. The very next day, the Afghan Taliban retaliated, launching drone strikes on several Pakistani cities. And with this, they proved they had the capacity for these asymmetric attacks. I mean, they even managed to fly drones over major hubs like Rawalpindi, which, is the home of Pakistan's powerful army headquarters. That's a big statement.
And that brings us right back to March 16th. In response to those drone attacks, Pakistan unleashed the massive airstrike on Camp Phoenix, an attack that resulted in hundreds of casualties and pushed this conflict to a brand new, terrifying high.
And Pakistan wasn't hiding its intentions here. They gave their campaign a name, Operation Ghazab Lil Haq, which translates to righteous fury. The Pakistani defense minister didn't mince words. He straight up called the situation an open war.
And of course, as in all conflicts, the greatest cost is a human one. Since this latest round of fighting began in late February, more than 100,000 people have been displaced from their homes, caught in the crossfire of this escalating war.
So that's the what. But the bigger question here is why. How did these former allies, Pakistan was once the Taliban's key foreign sympathizer, how did they end up in an open war?
Well, the decay in their relationship has been incredibly rapid. Back in 2021, when the Taliban took power, Islamabad was hopeful, but that hope soured, and it soured fast. Between 2023 and 2025, terror attacks inside Pakistan just spiked, with 2025 being the deadliest year in a decade for Pakistani forces. By October 2025, Pakistan felt it had to conduct its first ever airstrike on Kabul, and then by February 2026, the gloves were completely off.
To understand this collapse, you have to understand three letters. TTP. They are the militant group at the absolute heart of this whole dispute.
The TTP, or Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, is often called the Pakistani Taliban. Now, it's really crucial to understand they are a separate organization from the Afghan Taliban who rule Afghanistan. However, and this is a big however, they are deeply linked through shared ethnic and ideological ties. And this brings us right to Pakistan's core grievance. Islamabad accuses the Afghan Taliban of giving safe haven to TTP leaders and fighters, allowing them to regroup and launch attacks back into Pakistan. So the obvious question is, why don't the Afghan Taliban just crack down on them? Well, the answer is complicated. Acting against the TTP would betray a deep ideological kinship, and they fear that if they do, disillusioned TTP fighters might just defect to even more extreme groups like ISIS-K. So they're really caught in a bind.
Which brings us to the present, and a very dangerous future. With trust completely broken and both sides committed to fighting, there just doesn't appear to be any easy off-ramp. The stakes are incredibly high for the entire region.
The harsh reality is that this is a war that neither side can truly win. Sure, Pakistan has a clear conventional military advantage, but as we've seen, the Taliban are experienced guerrilla fighters and they're developing an effective drone industry. That lets them wage asymmetric warfare and strike deep inside Pakistan.
I mean, the military imbalance is clear. Pakistan has a superior air force and a large established army. But the Taliban counter this with decades of experience in guerrilla warfare. And now they're leveraging new technology, like drones, to challenge Pakistan's dominance. It really is a classic case of conventional power versus asymmetric capability.
Regional powers have tried to step in. Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and China have all attempted to mediate. And their efforts have led to some brief ceasefires, like a temporary pause for the Eid holiday. But so far, no lasting solution has been found. The fighting always seems to resume.
A recent report from the International Crisis Group captures the tragedy of this conflict perfectly. It says, quote, "The latest spike in hostilities does nothing to address security needs, but merely leaves in its wake wrecked lives, displaced communities, and economic ruin. Just devastating." Which leaves us with this final, critical question. With trust completely shattered and this cycle of violence seemingly locked in place, is there any hope that diplomacy can pull these two neighbors back from the brink of a wider, more devastating war? Right now, the answer to that remains dangerously uncertain.